The excitement, participation, and knowledge of Juneteenth celebrations is expected to grow in the coming years, with recent legislation passing Juneteenth as an official federal holiday. On June 17, 2021, President Biden signed a bill making Juneteenth the first federal holiday signed into law since Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Juneteenth marks both the long, hard night of slavery and subjugation and a promise of a brighter morning to come. This is a day of profound, in my view, profound weight and profound power. A day in which we remember the moral stain, the terrible toll that slavery took on the country and continues to take. What I've long called America's original sin. At the same time, I also remember the extraordinary capacity to heal, and to hope, and to emerge from the most painful moments in a bitter, bitter version of ourselves, but to make a better version of ourselves. And today we consecrate Juneteenth for what it ought to be, what it must be, a national holiday. As the Vice President noted, a holiday that will join the others of our national celebrations, our independence, our laborers who built this nation, our servicemen and women who served and died in its defense, and the first new national holiday since the creation of Martin Luther King holiday nearly 4 decades ago. I'm grateful to the members of Congress here today, in particular the Congressional Black Caucus, who did so much to make this day possible. I'm especially pleased that we showed the nation that we can come together as Democrats and Republicans to commemorate this day with the overwhelming bipartisan support of the Congress. By making Juneteenth a federal holiday, all Americans can feel the power of this day and learn from our history and celebrate progress and grapple with the distance we've come, but the distance we have to travel, Jim.
President Biden also acknowledged Miss Opal Lee, the grandmother of Juneteenth. The 94-year-old activist from Fort Worth, Texas, has been fighting to make Juneteenth a federal holiday since 2016.
We're blessed to mark the day in the presence of Miss Opal Lee. As my mother said, God love her. You are an incredible woman, Ms. Opal. You really are. As a child growing up in Texas, she and her family would celebrate Juneteenth. On Juneteenth, 1939, when she was 12 years old, a white mob torched her family home. But such hate never stopped her, any more than it stopped the vast majority of you I'm looking at from this podium. Over the course of decades, she's made it her mission to see that this day came. It was almost a singular mission. She's walked for miles and miles, literally and figuratively, to bring attention to Juneteenth, to make this day possible. I ask once again, we all stand and give her a warm welcome to the White House.
So now that Juneteenth is an official holiday, what's next? Dr. Clarissa Myrick Harris, professor of Africana Studies at Morehouse College, hopes to see more open discussions about the history of race in America.
One point of view is that the making of Juneteenth a national holiday that'll keep them quiet in terms of African Americans. We're giving them a national holiday. Now they'll leave us alone. That's one view. But the other view is that, yes, we have this national holiday that is designated as Juneteenth from now until eternity. It's a national holiday. Therefore, this is an opening. This is an opening to begin to make this country realize the importance of our history, of the history of African people. Make sure that there's an understanding that this history should be a part of the fabric of the country and part of the curriculums across the country from K through 12 in higher education.
Now that it's a holiday, I hope that means that there will be more attention paid to what we've been through as a people and what the experience is, and that there will be some solutions that actually come down in our judicial system, and our as far as just economically, as far as just, we're still impacted as being a minority, and racism still exists, and discrimination across the board still exists. And so I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a holiday. Is nice, but we have some real issues that we need to deal with out here. Like definitely, we shouldn't have to march on a street saying that a Black Life Matters. Those things are just unacceptable, some of the things that are going on today. So hopefully, the holiday is nice to have, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to bring, we need our human rights, we need reparations. That's something that is very important. We are survivors, when you really take a good look at this. So it's great that we have a holiday, and I hope it just brings more attention, to some other important issues that we need to succeed, or we need to succeed.
Since becoming a federal holiday, Juneteenth has been pushed toward the spotlight more than ever before, bringing awareness to many who never learned about it in school.
There has always been a lack of our history, the history of the people of African descent, in the curriculums of school systems in America. And that's intentional, unfortunately. It's intentional because the history of America is not pretty. It does not reflect everything that it purports to believe in, as stated in the Declaration of Independence, as stated in the Constitution, and as touted by those who are the cheerleaders of this country. I am an African American and proud of it, but I also know that in order to truly appreciate this country and truly appreciate the people that make up the fabric of this country, you have to tell the whole truth. And in order for us not to repeat the same mistakes that this country has made over time when dealing with issues related to people who've been marginalized, such as African Americans and other people of color, in order to not repeat that, do it over and over again, because that's what's happening now. We're in this cycle of repeating repression, suppression, discrimination that has been going on in this country over time. And in order to stop that cycle, we have to tell the true story. We have to make sure that our schools are telling the truth, and that are truly providing our students with the education that they deserve in order for them to go out and do those things that we need to do to continue to make this country strong and remain a player on the world stage.
Dr. Myrick Harris takes inspiration from Martin Luther King Jr. Day, calling for people to use Juneteenth as a day on, not a day off.
The decreeing of Juneteenth as a national holiday is a time not just to have good food and a day off, but a day to reaffirm our commitment to social justice, our commitment to ensuring that our children, our elders, and our working adults have the best possible lives in the context of this country. And when we celebrate Juneteenth, again, it's not just about parades and food and a day off. It should also be about advocacy. We have some pieces of legislation that caught up in Congress now. H.R. 40, which is the reparations bill, which we should pick up the phone or send a text or email to our legislators and say, support this. Reparations is not just about money, although that's important too. It is about making sure that the opportunities for advancement, for higher quality of life are there for people of African descent, especially those who have endured enslavement. Not only from my perspective should it apply to those who have relatives or ancestors who experienced slavery, because many of us don't know that history that far back, but anyone who has existed in this country during the time of Jim Crow, post-Civil War to the present day, has experienced some form of discrimination. And so there must be opportunities for those kinds of slights, of those kinds of discrimination, suppression, oppression, to be repaired, to be made up for. So HR 40 is one bill that we can support. Another is HR 1280, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which would make it more difficult to do the kinds of things for law enforcement officers, to do the kinds of things that were done to George Floyd and many, many, many others, from Michael Gardner to Michael Brown, and all the many others whose names, if we call now, we'd be here for a long, long time. And it's also about accountability. That bill will essentially make sure that police who do these acts of violence and murder are not just allowed to continue as police officers and are actually prosecuted. And then there is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We need to support that. The Voting Rights Act was mutilated in 2013. That's why you have states across the country, not just in the South, who are able to establish these state laws that make it more difficult for people to vote. It amounts to voter suppression, the same amount of voter suppression that existed before the 1965 Voting Rights Act was established. You have a situation in time in which we have gone back. We had, during the Jim Crow era that started in the 1880s and continued on into the 1960s and the civil rights movement, that was called the nadir of civil rights, of human rights, of citizenship, the quest for citizenship among African Americans. And we have a second period in which we are at the depths of the fight, the depths of the lowest ebb of our fight for human rights, because of these efforts, again, to suppress, to repress, to discriminate against people of color, against African Americans and other people of color. And so we have to be committed moving forward. When we celebrate Juneteenth each year, make sure it's a recommitment to fight for freedom, to fight for the end of discrimination, and to fight for the passage of legislation that will make sure African Americans and other people of color have the freedom that we were promised.
Juneteenth is a day of celebration, a day to acknowledge the past and to advocate for what the future can be, a day of unity and togetherness.
Every person in the country needs to come to Juneteenth, a Juneteenth celebration, and learn what that's about. It's about independence. It's about a true independence, because 1776, which is the 4th of July, right? That's Independence Day. But we as a people were enslaved for 89 years after 1776, July 4th, 1776. 89 more years of enslavement. So how can that be an Independence Day? Who is that Independence Day for? It doesn't include everyone. Anyone who believes in freedom that's who needs to come to a Juneteenth celebration. And I don't think there's anyone who doesn't believe in free, who wouldn't want to be free.
We celebrate freedom now and forever, and commemorate Juneteenth.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at AIBTV.com. Follow us at Watch AIB TV on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And subscribe to AIB Studios on YouTube.